don't know about you, but I absolutely love huge space games. Yet sometimes the number of planets and long travel times can get a bit much. And I've read the comments here beneath my videos, and I know most of you enjoy doing things with your spaceships. And here's something that most developers don't realise. The answer to all of this, what you do with your ship, isn't about just giving us a large galaxy or more travel time. It's about giving us the dream we wanted, to feel like we're really in space, to control real ships. Space Hauler and Flight of Nova then perfectly understand this. QANGA also understands it, but has a different take. So what it's a dream I actually wanted, and I suspect many of you did too. Well, for a lot of us, it wasn't to be told there are billions of stars out there. We already knew that after all. What many of us wanted was to feel what it would actually be like to fly a real spaceship around a real place. It's the dream of approaching a moon with a real atmosphere and feeling our wings catch as we enter it, or to look at the ship's instruments and have them really mean something. And of course, the want, and this is the big one, to actually land somewhere and know that the next place we land in is going to be different. And I don't just mean a different texture or a different colour, but also different gravity, different air, different weather, and yes, totally different problems and challenges. These are the things that all the space movies have promised and shown us for decades, and it's something I really always want to experience inside games. And all of this is something that the 3 games I've mentioned really seem to understand. And they also understand something else. You don't need a billion planets to deliver on it, and in fact, a billion planets might actually work against it. So let's take Space Hauler. This was recently announced. It's not out yet, it's not out for a while yet, but it's actually looking like a very compelling game, at least potentially. It's from a one-person studio in Iceland. The studio is called 94 Kelvin, which, incidentally, is named after the surface temperature of the moon Titan. And the whole game itself is in fact set on Titan and around the Saturnine system. So just one moon, basically here, and the developer's bet, the developer's goal, and it's something that I feel is a really interesting bet, is that Titan alone is enough. And this makes sense when you really think about it. You could have hundreds of worlds, thousands of worlds, maybe even millions of worlds, or you could have one very accurately modelled dense world, and Titan is a very good fit here. It's a place with an atmosphere that's 4 times denser than Earth's. The gravity there is just 14% of ours. You've got methane lakes near the poles, dust storms, cryovolcanic terrain, and that all means a lot of different things for the player, but it also means something very specific for your ship. And honestly, I wish we had way more footage from Space Hauler to show you right now, but it's only just been announced. But either way, with a world like Titan, you've got a lot of different things going on, because your ship in this game is going to have to actually deal with all of those things. And that means that you're flying tilt rotor, because this is one of the more effective ways of getting around in an atmosphere like this. You're also using Methalox rockets to climb out of the atmosphere, because the air is too thick to push through in any other way. And that's just a couple of basic points, right? You also got the whole gameplay loop of deliveries, and when you're thinking of deliveries on a location like this, you've got a lot of different things to deal with, which includes huge variations on weather, and we'll talk more about the other conditions in just a moment. But the point is, all of this on just one moon, and the developer feels that that's enough to keep us busy as players, and honestly, looking at what Titan actually is as a world, it could well actually be right. Now, Flight of Nova is another game. This one's been out for quite a while. At least it's been out in early access. Some more content is on the way. It's still under active development. And what's more, there is a free demo of Flight of Nova, so do check that out on Steam because it's well worth picking up. And this is another one that tends to go what many people might consider small. It hasn't got millions of planets. It hasn't even got hundreds of planets. But the fact that it's got one very large planet has been more than enough, because ultimately it proves the point that if you're really detailed on the planet and the physics that go with it, then your game can still feel very, very large indeed, and perhaps arguably it can offer even more content than a game with billions of planets. And this is for one specific reason. It's about depth, not breadth. And Flight of Nova tends to focus on this with physics, at least as one part of all that. For example, you can't just point your nose towards a planet and just fly toward it and hope to get inside the atmosphere. Same with leaving the planet, you can't just point up like a rocket and try and leave, because that's going to cause you problems. Ultimately, on escape into orbit, you need to think about periapsis and epoapsis. And when you come back down on re-entry, if you get the angle wrong, your wings come off. And I do mean they literally come off. It's happened to me more than once. Ultimately, what's going on here is that the damage model is very real. The drag in the atmosphere is real. the atmospheric heating is also real, and what all of that does is turn every single flight in the game into a challenge, into a different situation, into something they've actually got to think about. And that means that every time you come down from a station to the planetary surface, it can all be very different because things are in slightly different places. You need to think about where you're targeting. You need to think about your angle of descent. In other words, things have changed. And talking of which, the game is about to add 2 new moons here. This will mean you'll have 3 planetary bodies. And in many ways, it's not just about having the extra destinations here. What's going on is the gravity of these other 2 worlds, these 2 moons, really do have another context to them because they interact with everything else already in the game. The point I'm trying to make here then is that when you've got a game that fundamentally has this level of depth, just in terms of these systems, the flight model, the physics in the world, then everything you layer on top of it has already got a lot of complexity to it as well. And this can keep things engaging and it can keep things very interesting. My opinion is that Flight of Nova has an absolutely fantastic flight model and it's very, very interesting to engage with. Now, another thing here, we come to another game called QANGA. I looked at this a while ago. It takes a very different angle, a very different swing at the same idea of what we've spoken about in the other 2 games. What they're trying to do here is scale it up just a little bit to model an entire solar system. So what happens is you start on their version of Earth in the refuel tower, and you're doing the same kind of survival and combat and crafting activities that you might expect they'd have in this type of open world game. But then you can fly seamlessly into orbit and from there to the moon, to Mars, Venus or Saturn, and you'll have no loading screens, no menu transitions, just one big continuous place from the surface of one world to the surface of another. And this may put you in mind of No Man's Sky. Are there many other titles who do something like this? What's different here is that every location has very real activities that are relevant, that are reactive to the world that you're on. And of course, maybe this is a little bit too ambitious, especially for a small team, and let's be honest, the game has had struggles in early access. You only have to look at some of the Steam comments to see all that. But the bet here is that the team are making, well, they're actually making the same bet as the other 2 games as well, aren't they? And that's the idea that what makes space feel big is not travel time, it's not the number of worlds or planets you can go to, not the size of the galaxy, but it's actually the depth of all the locations that actually do already exist there. I mean, we can think about this with Space Order, can't we? Although there's not a lot of information on the game just yet, what has been revealed is that just the one moon we've got, the moon of Titan, will have genuinely different situations than most games put into 1,000 different worlds. Think of it like this. A delivery cargo to a canyon outpost where the air is not exactly clear, because after all this is Titan, but that's going to be very different to deliveries in a methane storm, or you're going to land near a polar sea. That's not the same as landing near the equatorial dunes. And that means that every one of these situations that you're actually going to be engaged with is different because of the way they're modelling a Titan. Although that said, do let me be very clear here, none of us have had hands-on with this game yet. We don't know exactly what the developers got in mind or how it's actually going to play out. But the theory is, the point is that I'm trying to make here, that sometimes one planet is better than 100 planets if that planet is modelled accurately. And Flight of Nova kind of has the same idea, but like I said before, it's expressed in physics in many ways rather than the locations, although the locations are also kind of the point as well. I mean, look at it this way. The game has been in development for about 10 years or so, from what I can tell, at least by the solo dev there. That's not fully 10 years in early access, of course, but the developer's been working on this for a very long time. And now they've got a lot of the systems in place that make this game really what it is. They're going to add something else in. And this is not thousands of different destinations, which of course it could be. They validated the concept works. What they're doing is adding just 2 moons. Yes, just 2. And personally, I think this idea works very well because we've also already got one really well simulated planetary body in the game, and adding 2 more means that you're multiplying everything that's already there. And all of these, of course, are going to be able to interact with each other because, yes, orbit mechanics, orbital mechanics and gravity, all of that really does have an impact when you start stacking it up. Now, I've been using the 3 games here to kind of make the argument that scale isn't everything, at least not terms of size or volume. I'm talking about depth here. The game QANGA is still a bit of an open question at the moment. When you take a step back and you think about the philosophy that all these games share, that you don't need an entire galaxy, that you can do it with relatively a self-contained area, even though these areas are truly large, they're truly absolutely massive, I think there's one distinct difference here. Whilst Space Hauler finds itself on just one moon, and the Flight of Nova has all its physics, when you try and take concepts like that and then combine it with multiple worlds, mission systems, crafting and everything else, you're looking at a very complex game indeed, at least in terms of the systems needed to make it work successfully. But you know what, I feel it is a very worthy objective, a really nice goal to have. And I really feel that all of these games do show us one thing very clearly. Now sometimes you can take the idea of scale and apply it to depth, that in fact one planet, multiple planets, 2 or 3 moons, all of this can really combine together in a way that makes your universe, your game world, feel truly large, very, very massive indeed. And that's down to the way that these things are modelled in extreme detail. And that of course is a point I've been making for a while now, quite a few times over in fact. So let me know what you think about this whole concept, let me know what you think about the games in question in the comments section below. I'd love to hear from you. There's another video on the screen right here if you want to check that out. Thanks for watching this video all the way through. Do take care, and I'll catch you next time.